Let me now introduce the next speaker, Haishia, who's going to be talking about how Instagram optimizes video quality at scale.
Hi, thank you, Shankar. Thanks all for attending our workshop. My name is Haishia Shi. I have been working at Facebook for over 2.5 years at the Instagram Media Infra team. And today I'm going to give a brief talk on how we try to optimize our video quality at scale for Instagram. Next slide, please. Yes. So first of all, we are looking at the problem of improving video quality from end to end. On the player side, the way that we improve playback experience is through ABR or adaptive bitrate streaming. And that means that player needs to have a set of encodings that are readily available to select for the optimal version based on bandwidth. And player needs to continuously stream and possibly dynamically switching between those different quality streams based on real-time bitrate estimate. And what that means is that a certain amount of processing is required on a server for this to be available. Server needs to generate multiple encodes for the same input video. And it needs to make some decisions to select different resolution, bitrate, and quality settings up front. And all of these encodes needs to form a set with aligned keyframes to allow seamless transition between different quality. Next slide, please. So this itself is not really a difficult thing, but the challenge it comes with the scale. We have a very huge upload volume in excess of many millions of daily uploads. Transcoding all of these videos are computationally expensive because, first of all, the number is high, and for each one of those videos, we need to do many different transcoding jobs. Efficiency in terms of compute and energy is really the most important requirement here. Even though Facebook has a lot of data centers and we have a very large compute capacity, there's still not enough when you average this by the huge number of uploads. It's not enough to achieve the best compression efficiency for all. And finally, IG is a product where users tend to share their low quality mobile camera captures that have compression artifacts to begin with. So it's quite different from the professional made content and the applicable technique for them. Next slide, please. So our goal of optimization is pretty much aligned with the whole Facebook organization in improving compression efficiency, in reducing the computation cost, and to ensure high reliability. However, all these three goals tend to work against each other. So we need to find the best compromise that will get the best of all of them. Next slide, please. So I'm going to briefly talk first about the selection of the optimal encoding set. This is actually a pretty difficult problem. And to simplify this, we simply treat this problem as a 2D search space for encoding parameters. Typically, you have a target quality mode where you need to select the resolution and the quality parameter or a CRF, or sometimes you do the target bitrate, you select resolution and bitrate. But in either case, you have a 2D search space. And on the right, you basically exhaustively try all the possible combinations, and you measure the quality for each of those encoding, and you get this result. So if we plot all of them together, you get this bitrate and SSIM, which could also be PSNR or some other quality metric, and you put it on a scatter plot. Next slide, please. Ideally, what we are looking for is the so-called convex hull. It's this selected red subset of dots that represents the optimal encoding set for any given bitrate. This is representing the best quality that you can possibly get within this 2D search space. The problem, however, is that it's too computationally expensive to try all the combinations and then select a subset. Obviously, we really cannot afford to try like dozens or hundreds of encodings for every upload. what we really need is a low-cost heuristic to approximate this convex hull. Next slide, please. So at Instagram, what we basically do is a very cheap heuristic. We start with the intuition that we can very easily assess the blurriness of the input. For example, in this example, the leftmost input is very sharp, and on the right-hand side, it's very blurry, and in the middle, it's somewhere in between. Next slide, please. So what do we do with all these three categories of contents? For very blurry content, what we get is it has very low downscaling distortion. In other words, when you do the encoding selection, it actually favors downscaling first. Lowering the QP while lowering resolution means that it works better for smooth images, and you are not really losing too much due to downscaling. So that will be on the left here, where we basically try to reduce the resolution first, and then when we reach some kind of a minimum threshold, we start to increase the CRF. On the other hand, if it's a very sharp content, then you don't want to downscale very easily. You want to increase the QP. Even though that introduces some compression artifacts, it is usually hidden by the high complex images. So that is the solution in the middle. And finally, for everything in between, what we do is try to find a transition point, and then it will be the middle of the two. Next slide, please. So this is like one heuristic we try to bypass the cost of finding the convex hull. On the global level, however, we also have faced the question of prioritization. We do not have enough computation power to apply the full encoding set for all the uploads. So there's the question of which ones we prioritize. And these are the three principles. First, by content popularity. We can either do a static prediction based on the known characteristics of the creator, or by real-time monitoring for viral content. But we tend to prioritize content that gets watched more. And secondly, for the product characteristics, if some content has a long shelf life and it has a longer attention span, then it will get higher priority than things like direct message or short stories that tends to expire in a very short time. And finally, we take into consideration the different cost of video codec. For example, VP9 is more computationally expensive than H.264, so we cannot really apply the same priority for these jobs. We take into account that VP9 is X times slower than H.264, so it will require a higher amount of engagement to compensate. So that is a short summary of some of the tactics we use to optimize encodings at scale.